Uh, Good evening, everyone. Myself, CA Ajinkya Randive, Managing Committee Member of Pune branch of ICI. Welcome you all on today's webinar on e-invoicing under GST. I welcome today's speaker, CA Jugal Doshi, who is a practicing chartered accountant since past 7 years. Today's seminar, e-invoicing under GST, as we all know that since 1st April 2022, now e-invoicing has been mandatory for companies having turnover about 20 CR, and there are many various aspects of practical issues or laws that CA Jugal will be helping us uncover them. I will just introduce our speaker, CA Jugal Doshi. He's been practicing chartered accountant since past 7 years and is specializing in the field of GST. By educational qualification, he has completed his graduation from Brian Maharashtra College of Commerce, that's BMCC. He's a qualified chartered accountant, a qualified company secretary. He's also a registered valuer in securities and financial assets, IPBI. He's also a qualified independent director. Jugal's achievements are his All India rank 34th in CA final exam. Also All India rank 13th in CS intermediate exam. All India rank 18th in CS professional examination. He's completed diploma in international financial reporting standards by ACCA UK. He has also completed diploma in information systems audit by ICI. He has, speaking about his public speaking experience, he has conducted more than 90 seminars on GST through various forums like MCCI, ICI, WM, TPA, JCFA, etc. all over Maharashtra on all areas of GST. So without taking much time now, I hand over to you, Jugal, and we'll start with our today's seminar. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Firstly, thank you Ajinkya Randive sir, Rakesh Agarwal sir, and the entire Pune branch of ICI for giving me this wonderful stage and opportunity to share my knowledge and showing your confidence in me. So, friends, today I am going to talk on the topic of e-invoicing. So, I have divided my presentation into 4 main parts. In the first part is the concept of e-invoicing, then the legal provisions. Third part is the FAQs, then the procedural aspects of the GST e-invoicing, and then I would be talking about the practical experiences or issues which I have faced with various clients while implementing GST e-invoicing with them. So before starting with today's seminar or today the concept of e-invoicing, let's talk in brief about the GST system. So we all have been witness to the evolving of GST from 2017. You all would agree that the law which was proposed in June 2017 was a very strong law, and as compared to it, the law which was implemented, it had many loopholes or many variations, because of which loopholes were created. So the original law proposed two-way auto two-way reconciliation, etc. All the provisions were there in law, but what was implemented was not the same. E-way bill was also deferred, two-way reconciliation was deferred, but this government is very active, I would say, and in past 4 years they have did many changes in GST, continuous updations are there, and today I would say from government's point of view, we all as a practicing CA or as a client, we may have a different opinions. But from government's point of view, I would say the law which is there today is much stronger than the law which they had proposed in 2017. But each and every step, one by one, they are taking steps to block all the loopholes or to tighten the law. And e-invoicing is one of that step, I would say. So friends, the concept of e-invoicing basic is, if you see the slide, I have the word reported is in bold. So firstly, I would be conducting this session in English and Hindi mix. If anyone have issues with the language, you can drop in chat box. Otherwise, if you have issues, I would conduct only in English, or I would prefer mix of both the languages. Okay. Yeah. So the सबसे बड़ा जो myth है e-invoicing का कि अपने को गवर्नमेंट के सॉफ्टवेयर के ऊपर e-invoice जनरेट करना है. Answer is no. E-invoicing is just reporting of your existing invoice to the government. Your entire POS मॉड्यूल जो रहता है या फिर सेल्स का सिस्टम, अपन जो बिलिंग सिस्टम कहते हैं, इट इज एंटायरली गोइंग टू बी सेम, नो चेंजेस एट ऑल. आप पहले 3 इनवॉइस दे रहे थे, अभी भी 3 इनवॉइस ही दोगे. पहले आप सॉफ्ट कॉपी में दे रहे थे, अभी भी सॉफ्ट कॉपी में ही दो. पहले आप लेटर हेड पे प्रिंट छोड़ रहे थे, अभी भी लेटर हेड पे प्रिंट छोड़ो. मैनुअल साइन कर रहे थे, सेम, नो चेंजेस एट ऑल. You may change due to other reasons, but because of invoicing there is no change in your invoicing system. What they have did is only one step is added. इनवॉइस बनते ही अभी गवर्नमेंट को रिपोर्ट करो, वो रिपोर्ट करने के बाद गवर्नमेंट उसमें 2 चीजें देगा, वो चीजें आपके बिल पे प्रिंट करो और फिर कस्टमर को दो. सो whatever your existing procedure was, उसमें सिर्फ एक पॉइंट ऐड हो गया है. The moment you create the invoice, you report it to government. On reporting it to government, we will receive the QR code, we will receive the IRN 64-digit code. You print those codes on your bill and then you give the bill to your customer. So this is the only change in e-invoicing which is going to be there. Now the question is why? They have added this one step, but why have they added? What are the objectives behind this? So the why they have added first is substantial reduction in input tax credit verification issues. The reason auto two-way reconciliation was not implemented was आज सब सॉफ्टवेयर का डाटा अलग अलग फॉर्म में है. कोई टैली यूज कर रहा है, कोई सैप यूज कर रहा है, कोई ओरेकल यूज कर रहा है. ओरेकल के रिपोर्ट्स अलग फॉर्मेट में आते हैं, सैप के रिपोर्ट्स अलग फॉर्मेट में आते हैं, टैली में अलग फॉर्मेट में है. ये सब डाटा कम्युनिकेशन इश्यूज हो रहे थे. सो ये सब इश्यूज होने के वजह से रिकंसिलिएशन ऑटो नहीं हो पाया. सो अभी ये ऑटो रिकंसिलिएशन गवर्नमेंट को करना तो है, तो अभी कैसे करें? सो द स्टेप टुवर्ड्स दिस ऑटो रिकंसिलिएशन इज सबको पहले एक प्लेटफॉर्म पे लाओ. इसलिए गवर्नमेंट ने क्या कहा, आप कोई भी सॉफ्टवेयर से इनवॉइस बनाओ, नॉट एन इश्यू, यू रिपोर्ट टू अस इन आवर फॉर्मेट. इससे गवर्नमेंट को एक ही फॉर्मेट में सबका डेटा मिलेगा, which would help them in auto reconciliation. It would also help in elimination of fake invoices. उसके बाद एक ही बार आज क्या होता है, हम GSTR 1 को भी रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं और ई-वे बिल को भी रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं. सो देयर इज डबल एफर्ट्स. सो दिस डबल एफर्ट्स वुड रेड्यूस. ई-वे बिल्स विल आल्सो बी जनरेटेड यूजिंग इनवॉइसिंग डाटा. तो जैसे मैंने कहा ऑब्जेक्टिव उनका एक ही है, स्टैंडर्डाइज फॉर्मेट होना चाहिए ऑल ओवर इंडिया. रियल टाइम रिपोर्टिंग उनको मिलना चाहिए. द रिपोर्टिंग इट वुड बी इजीली रीडेबल बाय मशीन्स. सो लेट्स से कल कोई आपका इनवॉइस है, तो वो इनवॉइस में मेरे को ढूंढने की गरज नहीं पड़ेगी कि टैक्सेबल वैल्यू क्या है. लेट्स से ये आपका ई-वे बिल चेक करने के लिए आपका कोई तो चेक टोल नाके पे गाड़ी रुका है. If it is e-invoice, they will just scan the QR code. उनको जो बेसिक 8 डिटेल्स चाहिए वो मिल गए. तो it would become easy. कल अगर गवर्नमेंट को ट्रैक, लेट्स से टुमारो गवर्नमेंट डिसाइड्स कि कितने इनवॉइस अपने से चेक हो रहे, कोई भी इनवॉइस अगर कोई भी टैक्स ऑफिसर ने पोर्टल पे टोल नाके पे चेक किया, तो वो स्कैन करो, उसके इतने डिटेल्स भरो. इट बिकम्स इजी फॉर देम टू कलेक्ट द डाटा. कंप्लायंस इजी हो जाता है. ई-इनवॉइस और ई-वे बिल, पहले GSTR 1 और ई-वे बिल में कोई भी कॉमन चीज नहीं था, दोनों अलग अलग था, दोनों का रिकंसिलिएशन करना डिफिकल्ट था. आज ड्यू टू ई-इनवॉइसिंग इट इज कॉमन फॉर ई-वे बिल आल्सो एंड फॉर GSTR 1 आल्सो. So because of that also they would get better information. So these are the objectives and behind e-invoicing. The main objectives which I personally feel again is, आज GSTR 1 रिपोर्टिंग था ही, उसमें कोई डाउट नहीं है. आज हर सेल का डाटा GSTR 1 के रिपोर्ट थ्रू गवर्नमेंट को समझ में आ रहा था. बट द इश्यू हियर वाज GSTR 1 नेक्स्ट मंथ के 11 तारीख को भरते हैं. अनलाइक इनकम टैक्स, GST इज अ ट्रांजैक्शन टैक्स. इनकम टैक्स कितना भरना चाहिए ये ईयरली कैलकुलेट होता है, और अगर कोई कम डिफरेंस है, ज्यादा है, तो वो साल का डेटा जनरली गवर्नमेंट ऑफिसर्स 2 साल बाद 4 साल बाद भी देख सकते हैं. बट GST इज अ ट्रांजैक्शन टैक्स. अगर मैंने आज एक आधा ट्रांजैक्शन किया, लेट्स से आज मैंने एक सर्विस दिया, या आज मैंने एक गुड्स बेचे और ये समय अगर वो ट्रैक नहीं हुआ तो दिस रेवेन्यू इज लॉस्ट कंप्लीटली। ये रेवेन्यू गवर्नमेंट बाद में ट्रैक कर पाना बहुत मुश्किल है। बिकॉज ऑफ दिस लॉजिक they want to have transaction wise control, day to day control. So through GSTR1 गवर्नमेंट को इनवॉइस वाइज डाटा मिल रहा था, बट ये इनवॉइस वाइज डाटा कब मिल रहा था? आफ्टर 40 डेज। अभी क्या होगा? अभी सेम मोमेंट पे मिलेगा। So that is the main purpose of e-invoicing, I would say. From government's point of view, the collection of data, collection time has reduced drastically. So before going to the legal provisions, there is one more thing I would like to highlight. बहुत बार हमें confusion होता है. There are two types of QR code. One QR code is regarding the e-invoice, which is applicable to B2B supplies. And there is one more concept in GST, that is a dynamic QR code. This dynamic QR code is applicable to B2C supplies. Only B2C supplies, not for B2B supplies. And B2B सप्लाईज को जो क्यूआर कोड है ई इनवॉइसिंग का, उसका पर्पस और B2C सप्लाईज का पर्पस अलग है। जब गवर्नमेंट ने इंप्लीमेंट किया तो उन्होंने दोनों इंप्लीमेंट किए, B2B का भी इंप्लीमेंट किया और B2C का भी इंप्लीमेंट किया, विथ अ स्मॉल टाइम गैप वी वुड से। बट द पर्पस इन दिस टू थिंग्स, एट द एंड द मेन पर्पस इज सेम, हमें लाइव इंफॉर्मेशन चाहिए, बट द लॉजिक्स आर डिफरेंट। फॉर B2B द लॉजिक वाज, इसको मशीन रीडेबल फॉर्मेट में बनाओ, कोई भी स्कैन करे तो उसको इमीडिएटली डिटेल्स मिलना चाहिए, बिल टू बिल गवर्नमेंट को इंफॉर्मेशन जाना चाहिए। इन डायनामिक क्यूआर कोड विच इज B2C, वहां पे गवर्नमेंट को बिल वाइज डिटेल्स नहीं चाहिए। सो द लॉजिक ओवर देयर इज, इट इज अ B2C सप्लाई। B2C सप्लाई आपको कंसोलिडेटेड ही अपलोड करना है, बट देयर आर पॉसिबिलिटीज दैट पीपल मे डू सम मैनिपुलेशंस इन B2C सप्लाईज आल्सो। So how we should control? So let's take an example. Tomorrow we go to some restaurant and we have food over there. How can government control कि वो restaurant में everything is B2C supply, वो restaurant का total supply कितना हुआ? ये चीज पे तो e-invoicing से control नहीं आएगा, being into B2C industry. So the aim was for B2C supplies there should be a dynamic QR code. This dynamic QR code would be used for payments. जो B2B सप्लाईज यानी जो ई इनवॉइसिंग का क्यूआर कोड रहता है उसको स्कैन करके अपन पेमेंट नहीं कर सकते, जो B2C का क्यूआर कोड है उसको स्कैन करके मैं पेमेंट कर सकता हूँ, एंड ये पेमेंट मैंने कौन से इनवॉइस को रिगार्डिंग किया है वो ट्रैक रहेगा। सो दे वांटेड टू फॉर B2C दे वांटेड टू अटैच बिल नंबर विथ द पेमेंट, कि ये पेमेंट ये बिल के अगेंस्ट आया है, ये पेमेंट ये बिल के अगेंस्ट आया है। So this was the motive. So the motive, the logics for both the QR codes are different. In this seminar, we are going to talk about QR code in relation to B2B supplies for e-invoicing, and not on dynamic QR codes for B2C supplies. So yes, now let's move ahead to the legal provisions. So first is e-invoice is applicable to whom? It is applicable for all registered persons whose aggregate turnover in a financial year, here the wordings are in a financial year, exceeds rupees 20 crores. So the wordings earlier were in a financial year, but later they have amended, they have brought an amendment, and then they have changed the wordings to in any preceding financial year. So the original proposed was in a financial year, but now they have changed it to any preceding financial year. So how it would impact, we would see in the next slide, but what they see is the aggregate turnover. Here the aggregate turnover should be as per GST. Again, it should be for all the states. So I have my main branch in Maharashtra having a turnover of 45 crores, and another branch in, let's say, Uttarakhand having a turnover of 5 crores. But my aggregate turnover for GST is 50 crores, and hence for Uttarakhand branch also e-invoicing will be applicable. Yeah. So for applicability, first we would see whether you are registered or unregistered. If I am registered, and my turnover is less than 20 crores, it is not applicable. If the turnover is more than 20 crores in any preceding financial year from 17-18 to 21-22. Here I am including the words 21-22 also because e-invoicing is applicable from 1st April 22. For that, the preceding year would also include 21-22. So if my turnover is greater than 500 crores, then e-invoicing is applicable mandatory for me from 1st October 2020 and dynamic QR code applicable from 1st April 2021. If my turnover is below 500 crores but above 100 crores, then from 1st January 21. So from 3 months, they reduce the deadline. Again, in next 3 months, from 1st April 21, they reduce the deadline to 50 crores. And now after a year, they have reduced it to 20 crores from 1st April 22. Here, what is important is the deadline only for B2B, for e-invoicing, that is B2B supplies is reduced. Dynamic QR code limit is 500 crores yet. That limit is not reduced. So that is one thing we should know and we should not get confused. The only limits which are being reduced is regarding the e-invoicing. Again, what is the logic behind these limits? So it is not that government का ये intention नहीं है कि हाँ ये छोटा है इसको नहीं जमेगा. The clear cut intention is what is the server capacities or the load handling capacity such that the portal everything remains smooth. So the decisions which they take is based on number of invoices which are generated, number of entities which would be covered in these brackets, and whether as per their calculations they would be able to handle this kind of load. So on this basis, they are reducing the turnovers. Once their confidence increases, they are reducing the turnover. And I feel in a matter of year, I personally feel it would take more year or two for e-invoice to reach the maturity stage to become the common thing. And yes, gradually this limit is going to decrease and it would be mandatory for all. So let's understand the applicability with help of example. In the first example, my turnover was exceeding 50 crores in 2019-20. So for 50 crores, that limit, the applicability was 1st April 21. And once applicable, it is applicable forever. There is no such rule that we have to see year-wise turnover, etc. So for one of the years, for 1920, it was more than 50 crores. Hence, it became applicable and would be applicable from 1st April 21. In my second example, the turnover crossed 102 crores in 18-19. So that was the limit. As that limit, the applicability date was 1st Jan 21. It would be applicable from 1st Jan 21. In the third case, in first year, the turnover was 1000 crore, but then I have discontinued some of my business and now my turnover is 45 crores only. But as it was more than 500 crores, the applicability is from 1st October 2020. We won't say it is applicable from 1st April 22, but it is applicable from 1st October 2020 only. Similarly, in fourth and fifth examples, we get the applicability date. What is important over here is we have to see turnover for the financial year 21-22 also. The financial year which has just ended 3 days ago. So there can be clients whose turnover up to 2021 has never crossed 20 crores, but in 21-22 they have crossed the 20 crores. And we may also not be updated about it because we have not the data we have not yet received for audit, etc., whatever you can say. But we have to check all the clients which we feel are on the borderline or are such that who are growing at a great speed. We should check the applicability and we should get them registered. And as being Indians, the first question we get is nahi kiya to kya? What are the non-compliances? What are the penalties, etc., for the non-compliance? I personally would say that we should avoid this non-compliance. Even if there is a non-compliance, you should find a way out some practical way out and get the compliance done as on date, because it can lead to huge litigations. If e-invoicing is applicable and I have not given e-invoice compliant bill, maybe my customer won't get the set off, and even I can face a penalty because I have not issued a valid tax invoice. The penalty is 10,000 or tax evaded, whichever is higher. So the penalties can be huge, and hence we should avoid non-compliance for e-invoicing. So the next issue is, for which transactions is e-invoicing applicable and not applicable? It is applicable for all B2C supplies. It is applicable for debit and credit notes as per the GST section 33-34, which talks about them. It is also applicable for supplies to SEZ. Means I am a unit in DTA and I am supplying something to an SEZ unit. So for this supply, e-invoicing is applicable. But at the same time, if I am a SEZ unit and I am doing supplies for SEZ unit, it is not applicable. It is also applicable for deemed export and export transactions and RCM transactions. Which RCM transactions? RCM transactions, my outward liability. Means, let's say I am a lawyer. For lawyer, the service is under RCM, but still I have to report my outward supplies in GSTR1 under RCM applicable yes category. Similarly, I have to generate e-invoice with RCM applicable category. It is not applicable for my input RCM. So let's say I have an GTA transport charges expense. So for this expense, I have to do self-invoicing, but e-invoicing is not applicable. For not applicable, we have B2C supply invoices, nil rated supplies, and wholly exempt supplies. So let's say I am supplying wheat, which is exempt from GST. So for this supply, e-invoice won't be applicable. Financial credit oblique debit notes. So it can be credit note only. There is no concept as financial debit note. If the sales value is increasing anyway, we have to levy GST. Only in case of decrease in sale value, we have the option of passing a financial credit note. Financial credit note means, let's say I have sold goods for 1 lakh. Later, for some reasons, it is decided the price is concluded at 95,000 only. In this case, I am not reversing. I am reversing 5,000, but I am not reversing GST on this 5,000. So I am paying extra tax. So for financial credit notes, e-invoicing is not applicable. Supplies to government department which are not having registration under GST, high C sales, bonded warehouse sales, import transactions, and ISD supply. So for an ISD, e-invoicing will not be applicable. Next, we comes to persons who are not required to follow e-invoicing. In first slide, we talked about the transaction, nature of transactions. Here we are talking about persons. So is SEZ units. SEZ units need not generate e-invoice. Similarly, insurance, banking company, financial institution, including NBFC. GTA. GTA supplying services in relation to transportation of goods by road or in goods carriage. So here there is no bifurcation like GTA which is paying on RCM or GTA who is charging on forward charge mechanism. They have simply excluded GTAs. Next is supplier of passenger transportation service, let's say Ola, Uber, etc. Then supplier of services by way of admission or exhibition of cinematographic film in multiplex screens. So for Inox, PVR, they don't have to generate e-invoice. And last is government department or a local authority. So even if a government department is having GST registration, they need not generate e-invoice. Yeah. So invoice without IRN reference is not a valid invoice. So government, when they brought e-invoice, they brought amendment in rule 46. They inserted a new provision, rule 46R, which says that a tax invoice should have QR code. So there are two things which are generated when I report e-invoice. So on reporting an invoice and IRN, it is a 64-digit code which is generated, and a QR code is generated. these two things are generated. What the law mandates is you should have QR code on your bill. You may have IRN. There is no mandatory requirement that IRN must be printed on the bill, but QR code must be there on bill. That is a mandatory requirement. So if e-invoicing is applicable to you and QR code is not printed on your bill, then it won't be a valid invoice. As it won't be a valid invoice, then there is a possibility of litigation. I am not saying 100%. 100% there are going to be litigations. Department will deny the set off ITC, and the customer would say, no, I have followed all the requirements, so I should be eligible for set off. Also, they brought in one amendment where they have told that where e-invoicing is applicable, physical copy of invoice need not be carried during transportation of goods, and it is sufficient if the QR code having IRN is produced electronically to the proper officer. So here, friends, I would like to give one disclaimer first, that there are two parts in e-invoicing. One is the part which we are learning today regarding the legal aspects, what is the concept, etc. But e-invoicing is not just a legal thing, but also a technological thing. There are many technologies which are involved in e-invoicing, which I feel we all CAs may not be equipped. Even I am not equipped to understand all the things. They have API, sandbox, etc. 10 different terms which may not be relating to our domain. But what is important is the compliance. We should know the logics, we should know the applicabilities, and we should be able to decide whether it is being complied or not. So technically there is one feature wherein government has made it public. The logic of that 64-digit IRN is made public. And I have seen, I am not confident, but I have seen few software companies which say that even in case that, let's say there is no internet, etc., we would be able to generate the IRN, and when it is connected online, that time this bill would be reported. So what is important, what as a CA I understand from this is, people can generate IRN without reporting the invoice, and it would be reported at a future time. So as a customer, we should check whether this IRN is actually reported on e-invoice website or not. That is the thing which I feel we should do the cross check. And for this, government also have an app through which we can check whether the QR code is a valid QR code or not. So that is one thing we should be aware of. So the next question comes from where? So the government has notified 10 different portals through which e-invoice can be generated. We can log in only to, I have practically tried and able to log in only to e-invoice1.gst.gov.in. For other websites, when we log in, it doesn't work. What I understand is they have a backend mechanism wherein if there is more load on the website, they automatically at backend transfer it to another website. But they have 10 portals which are notified for this purpose, and we have to generate e-invoice through this portal only. So now we have 3 different portals. First is gst.gov.in, through which we do our monthly and quarterly annual compliances. GSTR 3B, 1, ITC 04, GSTR 9, etc. The second is e-way bill website, through which we generate e-way bills. And this is the third website through which we would be generating e-invoice. So the only connection which they have kept is the password, user ID and passwords for e-invoicing and e-way bill. They both are same. So it creates challenge somewhere for e-invoicing and e-way bill. The passwords are same. In many companies, there are different departments. E-way bill department would be different. E-invoicing would be, let's say, of different department responsibility. So there need to be coordination regarding passwords, etc. So these are a few procedural issues which would also be faced. So what are the key features of e-invoicing? Firstly, what are the modes through which we can generate the e-invoice? So as you all are aware now, we have when we have to generate the e-invoice. It is at the moment when we are raising the tax invoice. So most of the CAs are aware with Tally. So I will give you an example of Tally. In Tally, when I do the entry, then I have to click generate e-invoice yes. Then it would immediately report to the IRN portal. It would get the QR code, it would get the IRN, it would print on the bill, and then only my bill would be saved, then only the bill would be printed. It has to be so fast. And this is not something which can be outsourced to a CA. Generally, clients outsource their GST return filing. GSTR1, GSTR3B, this can be outsourced. But e-way bill and e-invoicing are the things which cannot be outsourced. Clients have to be trained themselves for this. So as this deals with the basic business, day-to-day business activities, there have to be the multiple modes through which we can generate e-invoice. So the first is web-based. We can log in at that portal and we can manually generate the e-invoice. So when I log into the portal, again, there will be 2-3 utilities, separate utilities, through which there are 3 types of utilities. One, depending upon the nature of your transactions, whether it has item-wise details or not, etc. So on this basis, there are 3 different Excel utilities, and through these Excel utilities, we can generate JSON file which we would upload on the IRN on the e-invoice website, and e-invoicing would be generated. QR code and IRN would be generated. Then we can copy paste these details on the invoice and then print the invoice. This is the Excel mode through web-based. Till now, friends, this was not much popular. As we know now, it was applicable for 500 crores plus, then 100 crores, 50 crores. So it was applicable for big companies. And in big companies, as the volume is high, no one went for this Excel utility. Very few, I would say. They went for other options, which we would see later, API-based, GSP-based, etc. But now, as the limits are reducing, I feel web-based option would gain the popularity, and I personally feel we all CAs should know about the web-based option. The reason I would say is I have faced situations wherein, due to some issue, e-invoice is not getting generated, and clients, everything is ready, the goods are ready to dispatch, and sir, ये invoice नहीं हो रहा है, मेरा माल निकलना है, गाड़ी मेरे गोडाउन पे रुका है, मेरे आदमी को निकलना है, there is some time limit, कुछ तो करके दो, मुझे 5 मिनट में invoice चाहिए. These are the kind of issues which we as a practicing CAs are going to face. So how we can help our clients in this moment? So they require urgent solution. And as I told, e-invoicing consists of 2 different things. One is the concept, the procedures, etc. And another is the technology part. And we can't control the technology. If you ask me the legal advice, legal remedies, I can provide. Tomorrow, there is some issue in your software. How can I guide you? So yes, technology is there. There is no option. We have to adapt to technology. But at the same time, I personally feel that this is a backup option. So in any case, when client falls back on us, we can give him this option. Whatever it is, ये ले ये Excel utility में ये format में data भरो, and you can generate e-invoice for now. This would solve your immediate issue, and then after getting this issue solved, whatever is your software issue, etc., we can figure it out. We will have time for the same. So web-based module, I feel, would be more practical for another reason, that now the turnover limits have decreased. I personally know many clients जिनका टर्नओवर है सर 20-25 करोड़ टर्नओवर है, बट इनवॉइस साल में कितने रेज होते हैं? तो इनवॉइस साल में सिर्फ 25, 30, 40, मैक्स टू मैक्स 50 रेज होते हैं. सॉफ्टवेयर इंडस्ट्री है, कंस्ट्रक्शन यूनिट्स है, वर्क कॉन्ट्रैक्टर्स है, एक्सेट्रा. So here, these people may prefer doing it through web-based module because the volume is less. So now let's go to another API-based and GSP-based. So what is e-invoicing work? आपको आपके सॉफ्टवेयर में से डाटा निकालना है, वो एक्सेल यूटिलिटी में भरना है, वो एक्सेल यूटिलिटी के JSON क्रिएट करना है, ये JSON अपलोड करना है और अपलोड होके डाटा आएगा जो वापस सॉफ्टवेयर में फीड करना है. So ये सब जो काम है, this is a monotonous work and hence this can be automated and government has automated it with the help of API. API is nothing but all these functions would be done by software automatically. There would be mapping कि मेरे सॉफ्टवेयर में जो डेट बोल रहा हूं मैं, वो ई-इनवॉइसिंग के फॉर्मेट में ये टैक्स इनवॉइस डेट का जो कॉलम है, लेट से 13 नंबर का कॉलम है, तो मेरे सॉफ्टवेयर में का जो फर्स्ट रो है ये 13 नंबर के कॉलम को मैप करो. Each and every field as per our software would be mapped to e-invoicing data, and then all the communication would happen through auto mode. What we have to just say is generate e-invoice. Once you say yes, once you accept, click the button, everything would work on the auto mode. Now one is through API. API ये है जो ये linking करते हैं और उनके through communicate होता है. There is another mode is through ERP. आप जो सॉफ्टवेयर अकाउंटिंग सॉफ्टवेयर यूज कर रहे हो, they are themselves registered on the government portal, and then you can directly generate through that software. Means you don't need any more intermediary. So for example, let's say Tally. Tally itself is a GSP. So मैं Tally में ही Tally के फीचर यूज करके e-invoice जनरेट कर सकता हूँ. I need मुझे कोई अलग GSP की गरज नहीं. I can go. So let's say we have clear tax or GST heroes. Whatever GSP you choose, that's not my issue. But what is important is I can go through them also. Let's say कोई client का customized software है. In this case, I have to go through one of these GSP. But if my accounting software itself has the integration, I need not go through this third-party vendor. So these are the two different modes. They have also proposed mobile app and offline tool based, but these are not much convenient. Or mobile app, I am not sure whether it is still operational or not. Yeah. So again, what is this logic? So when we will come to the practical issues, I would discuss with you about the logic of GSP and the role of GSPs in this also, and what are the issues we can face when we do it through GSP. So a few basic concepts about e-invoicing is, what I am going to do is, whatever information is there in my software, I am just mapping. So let's say my software is catching 50 different fields in e-invoicing. The basic issue was हर सॉफ्टवेयर का अलग फॉर्मेट रहता है. कोई सॉफ्टवेयर में डेट फर्स्ट कैप्चर होगा, कोई सॉफ्टवेयर में पहले पार्टी का नाम कैप्चर होगा, एक्सेट्रा. Now in e-invoicing, these fields of my software are to be mapped with e-invoicing fields, and I have to report it online. So the format in which I have to report is JSON. Whenever I report online, it won't contain my logo or whatever print my invoice format is, etc. Nothing. This details I would feed in Excel. इसका JSON create होगा, JSON online report होगा. उसके against मुझे एक IRN आएगा, एक QR code आएगा, and this invoice would come in PDF format also. We can say we can give the PDF print of that e-invoice, or you can give it in a normal way. आपका logo etc. सब डालते हैं. So this was about generation of e-invoice. Now what about cancellation? So firstly, before going to e-invoice, what are the legal provisions in GST regarding cancellation of e-invoice? In GSTR1, we have to report document-wise data, that this is the document series. During the month, let's say document series is HQ. I have raised invoice from HQ 120 to HQ 320. Total 200 invoice I have raised, and out of this 200, I have cancelled 5 invoices. So this cancellation concept is there from day one. But which concept is not there in GST is the concept of amendment. There is no concept of amendment in GST of invoice. In GSTR1, amendment concept is there, but once e-invoicing would come, I feel this concept again would become redundant. So the GST law provides that I can raise the invoice. They agree that, okay, there can be some mistakes. I have printed double invoice, or the party name is wrong, or the mobile number is wrong, etc. But there is no provision to amend that invoice. If some of the details are wrong, you cancel that invoice and raise new invoice. That is the system. This system was there from 2017. Now, what is important is how much were we following this system? Were we compliant to this system? If yes, no additional issues. If no, now this is going to be a fit gap analysis. For our client, this is going to be an issue. Now they can't do backdated amendments and they will have to cancel an e-invoice in such case. A simple example I would give is, in many cases what happens is bill बन जाता है और 6 दिन बाद कस्टमर आता है, सर मैंने 6 दिन पहले आपसे गुड्स तो लिए बट इस पे मेरा जीएसटी नंबर नहीं दिख रहा है, अभी मेरा सीए कह रहा है बिल पे जीएसटी नंबर चाहिए, आप इसमें जीएसटी नंबर डाल के मेरे को बिल वापस प्रिंट दो. And I have seen in 80% of the clients at least, okay, they do it. But would it be feasible now? Answer is no. I can't do amendment in this bill. I will have to cancel that bill and generate a new bill. Now, when I say I have to cancel and generate a new bill, it is going to create whole new issues if you are having an ERP and if there is an inventory accounting which has been done. कैंसिलेशन कब होगा, कैंसिल होता है तो वो डेट से मेरे बुक्स में इन्वेंट्री बढ़ेगी क्या, तो आज मैं नया बिल मारूंगा, आज के डेट का मारूंगा या वो डेट का मारूंगा, मेरे सॉफ्टवेयर में बैकडेटेड अलाउड होगा क्या, अगर मैंने 6 दिन बैकडेटेड बिल मारा तो क्या मैं 6 दिन बैकडेटेड ई इनवॉइस जनरेट कर पाऊंगा क्या. So all these issues are going to be there and it is not going to be an easy thing. So the way, one more way which we have is, you issue credit note for this invoice and you generate a new invoice. So that is the thing which can be done. As long as the e-invoicing portal is concerned, cancellation is possible only within 24 hours. So if I generate bill, let's say today morning at 9 AM and one bill today evening at 7 PM. Both of these bills would be available on e-invoicing portal till tomorrow midnight. So this 24 hours start from the midnight of the day on which the invoice is generated, and for the next 24 hours they would be available on the invoicing portal. After that they would not be available. I can't cancel that e-invoice. But what if there is a genuine case? Then how? What can I do? In that case, I will have to cancel it. I will have to delete the auto-populated data in GSTR1. So IRP, invoice reporting portal, is just a pass-through. They don't store the data. GST, मेरा gst.gov.in, ये जो मेरा GST का पोर्टल है, ये जो भी मैंने डाटा फीड किया ये स्टोर करता है. मैं आज भी 2017-18 के जुलाई 2017 का GSTR3 भी डाउनलोड कर सकता हूँ, GSTR1 डाउनलोड कर सकता हूँ. ये डाटा स्टोर करते हैं, बट IRP डाटा स्टोर नहीं करता है. इट इज जस्ट अ पास थ्रू. उसका काम सिर्फ क्या है, वो ई इनवॉइस के जगह QR कोड दो, ये दो, खत्म. The invoice is validated by it and then pass it to the GST portal. So they pass the data to your GST portal, and after 2 days that data would be auto-populated in the GSTR1 and GSTR2A, and then thereafter you can't access that data from IRP portal. They don't save the data. Yeah. So now we would come to the next concept, which is e-way bill generation. So as I told, e-way bill work is also automated. Many clients, they don't generate e-way bill manually. E-way bill is also generated through system. So now we have to feed data once only at the time of when you enter the tax invoice. Then only we'll have to select e-invoicing, yes, e-way bill, yes. Then the data would be communicated to both of them, and then e-way bill details would also be available. But this is optional, it is not compulsory, because there can be many situations where E-invoicing is applicable and e-way bill is not applicable. Let's say the invoice is of 40,000. In this case, e-invoicing is applicable. There is no basic limit that if it is more than 50,000 or 1 lakh, then only e-way bill is applicable. For e-invoicing, it is applicable from 1 rupee. So your e-way bill may not be applicable. It is a e-invoicing applicable for service transactions also, but e-way bill is not applicable for service transactions. Or e-way bill is applicable for movement other than by way of supply. Let's say branch transfer within Maharashtra. It is not a supply also. From one godown to another godown. E-way bill is applicable, but e-invoicing is not applicable. So we can't say that e-invoicing and e-invoicing hai to e-way bill hona hi chahiye. No. Government has given us option. If you want to generate both, you generate both at the same time. Otherwise, you generate e-invoicing first, and after generating e-invoicing, you generate e-way bill, or you can independently keep both the facilities different. When you generate e-way bill, part A would be filled, and it would be, if you fill transporter details would be allocated immediately to transporter also. If you generate both at the same time, then your e-invoicing data would also contain your e-way bill data. When we see the e-invoicing form, they have an optional tab wherein you can fill our e-way bill details. But if we generate at a later date, the e-invoicing may not have the e-way bill data, and later, if required, we will have to do the manual reconciliation and prove it to the tax officer. So the process flow is, I would generate the JSN, I would report it to IRN by uploading the JSN. IRP, Invoice Reporting Portal, would validate my data, and then they would share the e-invoicing. So what is important over here is, they would validate my data. They have the authority to validate the data. Means, sir, मैंने bill बनाया, that's my business decision. How can they reject my bill? Agreed, it's your business decision to make a bill. They won't reject on the grounds that ने quantity गलत डाला है, या फिर आपने 10 लाख लगाया 6 लाख का ही बनाओ. No, that authority they do not have. But what is the authority they have? Rule 46 of CGST rules prescribes that your invoice should contain some basic minimum details. Whether all these details you have reported or not, that they can check. It says that there should be a taxable value. There should be GST. It would check whether taxable value is there. If it is correct or wrong, it doesn't care. But whether all the required details are there or not. So let's say for a main issue is PIN code is important in generating invoice. So for e-invoice, it may be that PIN code is mandatory. But if your software is not capturing the PIN code currently, this is the gap analysis which we as a CAs should do and solve these issues. So henceforth, maybe it is important that PIN code should, if that field is not mandatory while making the sales invoice, we will have to change it to mandatory. So here on the screen, you can see the sample e-invoice. What is important is on the left-hand corner that there is the QR code. This QR code can be scanned. If you go on, one good thing about the e-invoice portal, I would say, is all information is there on one portal only. You need not go at 10 different places. So if you go on e-invoice1.gst.gov.in, there in downloads, you can download the app on your mobile through which you can scan and you can validate whether the e-invoice is valid or not. So this is the sample e-invoice. And as we saw that the QR code, so what are the details this QR code has? It contains GSTN of supplier, GSTN of recipient, invoice number, date of generation, invoice value, number of items, HSN code, etc. So all these details are there in e-invoicing. So friends, so basically the birth of e-invoicing happened in the 35th GST Council meeting, which was there on 21st June 2019. It was discussed for the first time in this 35th GST Council meeting, and in the 37th meeting, on 20th September 2019, e-invoicing was approved. And now we are there in 2022, means it's already 2.5 years. So the it's a huge time, I would say, and still I feel it would take 1 or 2 years. First, future means these are future cannot be, we can't assure the future, but obvious. But what can be the future developments? We should estimate and we should be prepared for it. So first I told is it would be applicable for all. And next, which I personally feel is right now everyone is using e-invoicing only for the outward supplies. Tomorrow, maybe the technology may come wherein when you scan the QR code of a tax invoice, those details would be auto-fed in your software, let's say Tally or SAP or whatever customized software you have, and that much accounting part is eliminated. These details are auto-captured, they cannot be changed, and then other details I would have to fill, and then I can pass the purchase bill. So this is, and this I feel would be a good improvement in the accounting system as a whole. And we will have to wait and see how well it is implemented. So yeah, this is the purpose of QR code. So now, friend, let's revise the entire legal aspects. So this is the summary of various notifications. As I told, it was first proposed in June 2019, approved in September 2019, and notifications in respect of same were issued on 13th December 2019. 4 notifications, 68, 69, 70, and 71. These 4 notifications were issued. First notification 68, it inserted rule 48.4, which told that for a particular class of taxpayers, it would be mandatory for them to generate e-invoice. Rule 69 notified portal through which e-invoice is to be generated. Rule 70 told that the registered persons whose aggregate turnover exceeds 100 crores, for them, e-invoicing would be applicable from 1st April 2020. And Rule 7, notification 71 inserted Rule 46, which said that tax invoice should have QR code from 1st April 2020. So these were the original 4 notifications. But then, as we all know, due to COVID lockdown, there were many deferments, and similarly, on 21st March 2020, when the lockdown was announced, through notification 13/2020, it was amended and the date was extended to 1st October 2020. The turnover limit was still 100 crores. Then on 30th July, they released Form INV1. It is a very detailed form, and as a professional, I would suggest once at least we should go through the same. Also on 30th July, they excluded SEZ. In one of the earlier slides, we saw that persons to whom invoicing is not applicable, insurance companies, PVR, INOX, etc. For all these persons, they are not applicable. So it is notification 61 through which SEZs are excluded. And then in one notification, mostly 13/2020, what they have told is entities to whom Rule 54, 2, 3, 4, 4A, etc. These are the persons through whom to whom these separate rules are there. So to whom those rules are applicable, e-invoicing will not be applicable. Then on 30th July, turnover limit was increased to 500 crores. Then on 30th September, which e-invoicing was going to be applicable from 1st October, right? So on 30th September, they again amended and included the word for exports. As we saw, e-invoicing is also applicable for exports. So it was specifically included. And the turnover definition was changed in a financial year to in any preceding financial year. Again, on 30th September, they inserted one more notification through which Rule 46R was inserted. QR code was made mandatory for valid invoice. Also, they gave power to commissioner to exempt particular class of persons. However, no such class of persons is yet notified. And Also, QR, they brought in an amendment. If you have QR code electronically, physical bill is not required for e-way bill. Then on 1st October 2020, industry was not prepared due to COVID issue, but still government did not defer e-invoicing. The only thing they did is for the first 30 days, they provided a time gap of 30 days. You have one-time relaxation of 30 days. So for 1st October, I could generate invoice, let's say till 30 days up to 30th October. For 15th October till 14th November. For 30th October till 29th November. But for 1st November by 1st November only. Right now, only 2 days or 3 days backdating is allowed. Otherwise, we can't generate invoice of backdated. So with this, from 1st October 2020, e-invoicing was implemented in India. After that, the only exclusions are, only amendments are is reduction in turnover limit, first to 100 crores, then to 50 crores. And then on June 2021, government, department and local authorities were excluded. And now the latest notification, turnover is reduced to 20 crores. So these are all the legal notifications through which the e-invoicing has evolved in the GST area. So as you all would see, GST law is completely notification based. So yes, with this, friends, now we would go to the FAQ section. FAQs are given by the department only. They are available on the e-invoicing portal. There are many FAQs, but I have selected a few which I felt are important from our point of view to understand the law as a whole, and I would be covering them. So now, first FAQ is, will businesses now be required to generate e-invoicing on the GST portal or IRN portal? The answer is no. We have to just report it. The invoices would be generated by our own softwares. Then, whether the current e-invoicing schema is for the invoices to be issued by government or has to be maintained in the IT system by the taxpayer? Answer is, taxpayer is only going to do it. Government is not going to issue any invoices. We just have to report them, and all accounting etc. will be done by our ERP. Next is, will there be any separate invoice formats required for traders, medical shops, professionals, contractors? Answer is no. There is one single schema which is applicable for all of them. How long will be the e-invoice generated will be available at the portal? We already discussed, only for a day. After that, if you want to do any changes, you can do through GSTR1, but not through the IRP portal. Is there any validation to the effect that document date has to be within a specified time window? So here there is no such validation right now, but backdating they have blocked. IRP will not store or archive any invoices. Then, is it possible to auto-populate fields of e-invoice based on credentials entered, which would minimize my data entry? See, it is business end. You have to build an ERP which can do all the auto-population. If your software is having an auto-population facility, for you it would be so one thing I would say is, due to this additional new provision in the GST law, we can't complain that sir और मेरा load बढ़ गया. No. ना CA का load बढ़ा है, ना accountant का load बढ़ा है, ना management का load बढ़ा है. It is not that पहले सर 10 लोगों में मेरा invoicing हो रहा था, अभी मेरे को 15 लोग रखने पड़ेंगे. No, nothing doing. सब काम same है. Whatever work has increased is of software, is of technology. Yes, but obvious, the only work which is increased on management and CA end is the reconciliation part. That has increased, I would agree, but not in, we can't say that, abhi double time lagega, etc. That is not the case. There are maximum number of lines which can be there in an e-invoice. So maximum 1000 is the limit. So I even faced this issue in one of my clients, wherein they had B2B supplies. So let's say they were supplying goods to their franchisees, or just for an example, let us take right now is Bajaj is supplying goods to the dealers. So spare parts जाते हैं, cars, two-wheelers जाते हैं. Everything has a separate barcode. It is treated as a separate line item because billing is done on engine number wise, let's say. And in one consignment, there are 2000 items of spare parts, etc. So this was an issue which was faced. So the maximum lines right now is 1000. And if you have any such clients who have heavy item details in one bill, you need to check regarding that also. There are validations for each field, maximum digits, minimum digits, only alphabets, etc. For each field, validations are there. We will check that also. Now, next again is whether the IRN is to be captured in supplier's ERP. Answer is no. IRN would be generated by GSTN and we have to feed it, and you can keep it in your software or you may not keep it in your software. It is up to you. Whether e-invoicing is required to be signed, answer is as per your regular business practice. As I told earlier, this is just reporting which you have done. अगर आपका नॉर्मल प्रैक्टिस था डीएससी लगाने का तो आप डीएससी लगाओ, नॉर्मल प्रैक्टिस था प्रिंट छोड़ के साइन करना है तो आप साइन करो. एवरीथिंग इज गोइंग टू रिमेन द सेम. Yeah, so mostly we have covered the FAQs in normal discussion only. So now I feel we can go ahead. But yeah, there are 2-3 important. First is, does e-invoicing allow declaration of export invoices? Answer is yes. There is a category where we can say yes, it is an export invoice or a zero-rated supplies. Also, can IRP reject the submitted invoice? Yes, if it is found that it is a duplicate invoice. Let's say you have already issued an invoice on a number 22 and again you are uploading for the same number. So here they won't generate, or there are various errors. Let's say the GST number is wrong or some PIN code is not there, etc. For all these things, e-invoicing will not be generated. So here with this, I would like to cover one area is what are the audit checks we should keep in the e-invoicing regime. So the first, I would say from the sales side is, I should have a physical control also. Though I am telling that it is a completely automated process, one basic physical control which my organization should have is, whenever I am printing a bill and handing it over to the transporter, to my customers, etc., whoever is printing his bill, he should be given a checklist. He should be communicated well that you should not give any invoice which does not have a QR code. So there may be issues wherein due to some issue, e-invoicing is not generated. So we should have a manual cross-check, and that if physically when giving the invoice QR code is not there, you should not give that invoice, so that we come to know about this issue and the non-compliance at the earliest instant. The second cross-check which we can keep is, if e-invoicing is applicable to your client or to you, then at the time of filing GSTR1, there should not be a situation where you are adding invoices manually. Why? If you are adding invoices manually, the first question is why we have not generated e-invoice for this transaction. And at the same point, you should get, then you can see the earlier the mistake is identified is the better way you can find out how to rectify. So these two cross checks you should have from the sales side. From the purchase side, I would say is what when you enter a new vendor or a periodic update, whenever the limits are changed, we should cross-check all the vendors through GST and through the e-invoicing portal, whether e-invoicing is applicable to them or not. We should take a declaration from them. If it is no, that yes, e-invoicing is not applicable to us and we are not required to generate e-invoice. We should have a list that, okay, for these 40 vendors, e-invoicing is applicable. For rest, e-invoicing is not applicable. For those 40 vendors, we should not process the payment or accept the bill if QR code is not there on the bill. Also, we should have a check that for these persons, when the data is auto-populated in GSTR2A, the GSTR2A generated, it has a column of source where they says that the source is e-invoicing. So even if physical one-to-one bill checking is not possible, what we can check is the data auto-population in e-invoicing, whether the in 2A, whether the source is e-invoicing or not. So these are the basic checks as an auditor which we can keep on a monthly basis, not being involved in day-to-day activities, to ensure that all the e-invoicing is working properly or not. Yes. So with this, we would come to the procedural aspects. So friends, frankly, I'm not going to cover procedural aspects through this seminar because it is too much technical. I would cover it in 5 minutes and explain you. The only procedure is we have to upload. So the procedural aspect consists just is what is the invoice schema, is understanding the GST INV1, which is the invoicing schema. So the invoicing schema consists of few mandatory parts and few optional parts. So see this, I have mentioned all the schemas over here. The first status is group, and in group there are fields. So my group is general information, and then in general information there are fields. The first validation is on the group level, whether this group is compulsory, mandatory or optional. If the group is mandatory or optional, then the next level comes is whether the fields are mandatory or optional. So the general information group is mandatory. Having invoice reference number is mandatory in it, but having invoice currency code is not mandatory in it. Or reverse charge details is not mandatory in it. So for each group, there are mandatory fields and optional fields. Then the group itself can be optional. For example, delivery details. This is optional. If it is a service bill, I may not insert these details. But if I fill these details, then the mandatory fields are, there are two mandatory fields, invoice period, start date, end date. So I will have to fill these details. So if it is an optional group, if I am filling, I will have to fill all the mandatory fields. If otherwise, only optional. My personal advice would be give maximum details possible because it is one-time linking. So if you link all the things and maximum data is reported, it is better for you at the assessment or any other level when you have to prove that this the invoice you are talking and the invoice which is reported is same. You can have a reverse opinion also, jitna kam de sake do, so that you have chances to adjust, do some adjustment, etc. But I feel it won't work in GST era, and hence we should be of the view that give maximum details possible. So yes, in my PPT, I have covered the complete GST INV1 form. You can also go through the complete INV1, which is released by the department, which will help you on a largest to go much deeper. Because for each mandatory fields, again, there are validations that the legal name should be, let's say, minimum 2 characters, maximum 40 characters, etc. So all these validations details are there. This PPT would also be shared with you all, so you can go through this in detail, and I am not covering. So yes, so one thing I would say, see this e-way bill details, it's optional. So if I fill, it is up to me what I should fill. And one more thing which I would like to say is buyer information. In buyer information, it is mandatory, and billing PIN code is also mandatory. Name, GSTN, place of supply, address, state, and code. These much are the mandatory details. Address too is an optional. Phone number, email ID are optional, but PIN code is mandatory. In one of my clients, they used to collect address, but PIN code was not mandatory in their software system. So that was one change. They had to change their system where they made collection of PIN code mandatory. So yes, we should go through this to do the fit gap analysis. Again, in item details, quantity, rate, amount, GST is mandatory, but optional is unit of barcode number, pre-quantity. So as I told, one of my client is maintaining barcode-wise details. So as a conceptual principle in policy decision, we decided that yes, in one client we are going to give barcode-wise details. Another client had some issues. He told no, we won't be uploading barcode-wise details. But this is something which we should check or do the audit. What I see is, सर वो सॉफ्टवेयर वाले ने मेरे को करके दिया है, उसने मैपिंग करके दिया है और अभी मेरे सॉफ्टवेयर से इनवॉइस जनरेट हो रहा है. I would say it is not sufficient, and we should do this audit, that what is the mapping they have done, which field they have linked to which field, whether the output is coming properly, whether they are skipping on some information in reporting at the time of e-invoicing. So this was the first part of the procedural aspects, that we should know that what the form, the requirements of the form, the mandatory fields, the optional fields, then the validations, and the next is the errors. So there are going to be errors. We have to accept it. How much ever we automate the work, errors are going to be there. So what is important to know is what are the errors. Whenever the error would come, it would be in code. So we should know that if the code is 2150, it means it's a duplicate IRN. Then what is the reason for that error and what are the resolutions? This all information is available on einvoice1.gst.gov.in. All information is available on portal. So we should be able to decode the error. So basic errors are, it's a duplicate IRN. For intrastate supply, you have levied IGST. For interstate supplied, you have levied CGST, SGST. The HSN code which you have reported is not a valid HSN code. Then, so here what I would like to say is, in HSN code, one issue which I have faced is, as per the legal notification which is applicable, I need to report only 4 or 6 digit HSN code. But e-invoice portal requires 8-digit HSN code. So there is this one mismatch, I would say, that they are demanding something which I am not legally required to give. But yes, today we have to give them 8-digit HSN code, and then only we can go forward. Then whether total invoice amount and the item wise invoice amount is matching, whether the recipient is registered. So many cases I have seen, we face issues that GST is mentioned on bill, but that GSTN is suspended, or the registration number is cancelled, or while feeding GSTN, instead of 1 you fed L, etc. For all these errors, they show invalid GSTN, and hence e-invoice is not generated. So this should be one of the audit points where we should know that what all other errors, whether there are any errors, and if yes, we should try to rectify the error and generate e-invoice again. So yes, these are the procedural parts with regarding e-invoicing. So now I would like to go to the last important part, which I feel is very much more important, is the practical exposure, which you are going to face, and the issues which we are facing while doing the implementation. So yeah, I cannot cover this through slides, but yes, I can share the experiences which I have faced. So as practicing CS, what is important to is, it is for us or for clients is, हमारी बिजनेस प्रैक्टिस कैसे चेंज होगी, हमें कुछ चेंज करना पड़ेगा क्या. So yes, for this, the first issue which I have faced is, one of the issues which e-invoicing is doing is, they have, as I told, it is live reporting. So earlier we had 40 days timeline. So I could have decided on 5th April कि sir आप 31st March को ये bill मार दो. It is not possible now. Now I can't do this backdating billing. So all this is closed. So that is the first thing, which is the change with the e-invoicing regime. And see, that option is closed. I won't say that everything is adjustment, but there can be some genuine cases also. So in one of my clients' case, what happens is the goods that it's a bill to ship to transaction. So in bill to ship to transaction, I sold goods, let's say, to Ajinkya sir, and Ajinkya sold further to you. But goods are transported directly from me to you. So my invoice is there. I have generated e-way bill, and goods are delivered to you. And Ajinkya sir, let's say after 3 days, raises a bill. Now in this case, what he was doing till now is he was generating a bill of 3 days earlier. So मैंने आज गुड्स बेचे आपको, तो बट सामने वाले ने 10 तारीख को बिल रेज किया, बट उसमें डेट क्या डाली, 50 डाली. क्यों? क्योंकि गुड्स सामने वाले को 5 तारीख को मिले, गुड्स 5 तारीख को ही निकले थे. सो फॉर दिस रीजन डेट 5 तारीख की डाल रहे थे. So now this again would be blocked, though it is a genuine case, it would be blocked. Another example of genuine case I can think of is in one of my clients, they have rental income. So हर साल ऐसे होता है कि भाई बिल रेज ही नहीं करते क्योंकि पैसा आता नहीं है. Let's say it's a related party, etc. transactions, wherein it's just a book entry which we all do at year end, and there are this rent income, etc. is booked. Or one bill is done in the month of March and every month bill is not done. और let's say पैसा ऑटोमेटिकली अकाउंट पे आता है बट बिल सामने वाला मांगता नहीं है, तो वो समय पे जनरेट नहीं हो रहा है. Now here this is a lapse of time of supply provisions in GST law, and as I won't be able to generate backdated bill, this lapse is going to be there on paper. That as per the rent agreement, rent is due on 30th April. I have received money on 5th May, but I have generated invoice, let's say, on 30th June. So this lapse would be there, and maybe I have to face the consequences. So these are the few issues. Then, as I told, in many of the clients, sir, पहले 100 रुपए से बिल भेजा, बट जब सामने वाले को गुड्स मिले तो वो बोला नहीं, अपना तो 85 रुपीज ही डिसाइड हुआ है, 95 रुपीज ही डिसाइड हुआ है. सो हम वही बिल को रेट चेंज कर देते, वापस प्रिंट छोड़ देते और दे देते थे. क्यों? अभी तक कहाँ पे रिपोर्ट ही नहीं किया है. So all such practices now would stop. Once the bill is reported, you would have to cancel and generate a new bill. Again, it would create issues कि आपने जो बिल जनरेट किया है उसका ई-वे बिल भी जनरेट हुआ है. So once e-way bill is generated, whether you would be able to cancel it. If you won't be able to cancel it, then now you have to cancel it and give new bill. Even if you cancel and give a new bill, the e-way bill would have a reference of old bill which is cancelled and not of new bill. So again, at the time of audits, all these reconciliations would become difficult. So this is one of the issue which we can face. Yeah. Now again, supplier should have same policies. This is a classic issue which I used to face earlier, which I would say is reduced after GST due to e-way bills, etc. But in many industries, what happens is the quantity which is sent and the quantity which is received is not the same. There is some pilferage, there is some transit loss, etc. Let's say in case of milk, in case of water, in case of petrol, or anything. Let's on materials for which GST is applicable. It happens. Now, at the time of when the contract is, payment would be done as per the quantity of goods received. But how would I know? Let's say I am sending goods from Pune to Delhi, and there is a transit loss of 2%. How would I know what is going to be the exact transit loss? When I would generate the bill, I would generate as per the quantity which is sent. Then if there is any difference at the time of receipt, we need to pass credit/debit notes for the same. We just can't change the invoice. In few of the government companies also the rule was, सर हमारे यहाँ पे इतने गुड्स का वेट आया है, हमें यही वेट का इनवॉइस लगेगा. हम अलग वेट का इनवॉइस एक्सेप्ट नहीं कर सकते. हमारे सॉफ्टवेयर में, हमारे ERP में वो प्रोविजन ही नहीं है. और what used to happen is, मैं बिल बना रहा हूँ let's say 1 करोड़ 2 lakhs का, and then मैं 1.5 लाख का रिवर्सल कर रहा हूँ, बट सामने वाला अकाउंट करते समय 1 करोड़ 50,000 का ही बिल अकाउंट करता है, and then 1-to-1 2A में मैचिंग नहीं होता है. So now all these issues would change, and that is one thing where we will have impact. Another thing I could envisage is branch transfers. In many of the cases, what I have seen is, बहुत से बार सीए के पास जब डाटा ऑडिट को आता है ना, तब डिसाइड होता है सर आपने ये ब्रांच से ये ब्रांच पे गुड्स बेचे, ये केस में आपने ब्रांच ट्रांसफर का इनवॉइस रेज नहीं किया है. सो या फिर बहुत सारा बैकडेटिंग होता है या आफ्टर माइंड कैलकुलेशंस थॉट्स होते हैं, सेट ऑफ मिलता है, नॉट एन इश्यू. बट नाउ विल ऑल दिस बी फिजिबल? नो. For all the branch transfer transactions, also billing has to be done at the same time. For goods, it is easy, but what about services? In services, let's say few companies have a policy that वो cost plus 5%, cost plus 10% करेंगे, and month end accounting होने तक की 6 तारीख 7 तारीख होती है. So ये cost plus value derive होने में ही टाइम जाता है, तो अभी इसका backdating possible नहीं होगा. So that is one thing where I feel would be an issue, and these transactions we should look into particularly. So similar is industries where it takes time to generate bills. So let's say I have a contractor client, and यहाँ पे progress billing होता है. Every month end पे, last month पे let's say मेरे 6 slabs तक का billing हुआ है, ये मंथ एंड पे 8 स्लैब हुआ है तो 2 स्लैब का बिलिंग होगा. ये इंडस्ट्री ऐसा है कि ये बिल कितने अमाउंट का करना है, इसका कैलकुलेशन और वर्किंग करने में ही 2-3 दिन जाते हैं. उसके बाद क्लाइंट अप्रूव्स इट. मैं बोलूंगा सर मैंने 25 पिलर्स रेज किए हैं, सामने वाले चेक करेगा नहीं यार ये तक तो लास्ट महीने तक आया है, अभी एडिशनल 23 आ रहे. सो यही प्रोसीजर में 7 डेज जाते हैं. सो अभी तक लोग बैकडेटेड बिल बना रहे थे, अभी वो भी क्लोज हो जाएगा. Now we will have to create a provision in books, then reverse the provision, and जो दिन पे बिल हो रहा है वही दिन पे बिल करना पड़ेगा. Again, it may raise issues of compliance with time of supply rules, and that we will have to check case to case basis how we ensure compliance also. Yes. So the next issue or the concept I would say I would like to explain is regarding, as I told, the mechanisms. So in layman terms, I am a layman from technology point of view. So in layman terms, what is this e-invoicing concept? It is, I have to report the bill. Every invoice I have to report it to government. एक government का server है, वहाँ पे जाके report करना है. Now, as the transaction is done all over the India, everyone would come and report it to it. So to avoid itself from spams or viruses, etc., what government has done is, not everyone can access me directly. ये जो हमारा सर्वर है, ये जो हमारा IRP है, इसके गेट सबके लिए ओपन नहीं है. So it's similar to stock market. You can compare it. आज मैंने डिसाइड किया कि मुझे शेयर्स परचेस सेल करने हैं. Can I directly purchase sell it with stock market? No. I have to go through some stock broker compulsorily. Similarly, in e-invoicing, I have to go through some GSP or GSP who is registered. So the gates to this main software is opened only to few people. We will have to communicate our data through them only. So it would ensure that the load is managed. From proper management point of view, this concept is there, and that's why the concept of GSP is there in law. So everything is routed through them. The exception is if your turnover is more than 500 crores, government allows you to communicate directly with it. It's optional. There is in that case you have to do your API registration with government. There is a concept of IP whitelisting. So as we all have our names, our computers, our internets have an IP address. And even if we see on our ITR forms, it comes here that it is filed through which IP. So for it, the basic requirement is we should have a static IP, and that IP should be whitelisted. It should be added in the recipient's list of that IRP portal. And if my IP is whitelisted, then only I can generate bills directly. The logic is these are big companies. So they maybe let's take an example of Vodafone, Idea, or Jio. They themselves may be generating 50 lakh B2B supply bills per month. So it's not feasible for them to tell you go through some agent, and hence government has given this opportunity, this option, as the limit is decreasing from 500 to 100, 50, 20. But this limit for IP whitelisting is 500 only. This limit is not decreased. It is the same limit till date. And I would say once you are used to it, it is an easy job. But in start, you can face some issues. I myself faced issues. We tried to do IP whitelisting and it took us 1 or 2 months, and it was a bad luck that it was 1st October it was implemented, and we took a call that no, it is not feasible to do this. Let's go through some GSP, and we went live through some GSP, and after 2 days we got the registration, and again we changed it. So yes, these issues are there, and we should do ample planning beforehand if we want any of our clients to get registered through this normal portal. Also, I would say what is important is that what has evolved is this GSP concept. So I remember in 2019 when it was freshly implemented, people were taking 30,000, 50,000, or even in lakhs for just doing this mapping and one-time integration or one-time implementation. Now that cost I find has came down to a few thousands, like 5, 10,000, etc. Or even Tally is providing free of cost. They used to charge 1 or 2 rupee per invoice earlier, which has now reduced to 5, 10 paisa, and companies like Tally are giving it free. So yes, over a period, the e-invoicing is evolving. Yeah. So one more case I would like to discuss, as I have already told, is HSN code. It had a mandate of 8 digits, but you may not be knowing the 8-digit HSN code. So it is again going to be a time-consuming activity. Another, I told that if the GSTN is inactive, no more, then it would be treated as a B2C invoice and e-invoicing won't be generated. Later, the client, later maybe the suspended status is removed or etc. Whatever the reasons may be, we can manually add in GSTR1. But again, the issue is going to be there that e-invoice. I have faced issues wherein if I check on the portal on the GST website that GSTN is valid, but e-invoicing they say that it is invalid. So such practical issues can be there. Then one more I have seen is in one of my clients, what happens is, let's say you issue credit notes like 3% of the total, and there are some slabs. You have a written contract and you have slabs that if the turnover is more than 50 lakhs, 1%, more than 1 crores, 2%, credit notes would be issued. Now what happens is at year end, the working is done and thousands of credit notes are issued. But what happens is this working is done after year end because till last date sales happens. Then it is actual amount is done, it is audited, it is approved by management, and then entry is passed, let's say by 5th, 10th or 15th of April. Till date, people were doing backdated entry for the 31st March scenario, but this won't be feasible now. What is important is you will have to do the provisions, and the bill needs to be passed on, credit note needs to be passed on that day only due to e-invoicing. All the backdating is closed. So that is one impact which is faced in one of the clients. So one thing I already discussed is e-invoicing is applicable for outward RCM. There is an exemption for GTA. Even if I am paying on FCM basis or on RCM basis, GTA is exempt. But other than GTA, if my turnover is more than 20 crores, for all my supplies, I have to generate e-invoice. So one more issue which is faced in one of my clients is e-invoice is applicable to them. Now what happens is they sell through these online portals like Amazon, Flipkart, etc. E-invoicing is integrated with the accounting software, but was not integrated through with Amazon, Flipkart, etc. So whatever invoices were issued through Amazon or Flipkart, they did not have e-invoice. So, and what used to happen is, let's say there are 50 transactions through Amazon, Flipkart. At the end of the day, one entry is passed in my accounting software. So such issues should also be seen and properly tackled. Then one more classic issue which I faced is, as I told, there are validations on the e-invoicing portal. So there was one validation that they did not allow slash or dash sign. And the invoice number as per my client had that sign. So what this software guy did is, only at the time of reporting to e-invoice, there was a command that this slash was eliminated and then the number was reported. So now what happened is, as per client's accounting software and as per the e-invoicing portal, none of the number was matching. And there was some difference, and hence what client did is, what I would do is, instead of identifying the difference, मैं सब upload करता हूँ. जो सेम है वो अपलोड नहीं होंगे, जो डिफरेंशियल है वो अपलोड हो जाएंगे और मेरा काम हो जाएगा. और उसकी बदकिस्मती ऐसे थी कि इट वाज फर्स्ट मंथ और सब इनवॉइस अपलोड हो गए. इट वाज मोर देन 500 इनवॉइसेस के, एंड नाउ ऑनलाइन इंस्टेड ऑफ 1000 इनवॉइसेस देयर वर 2000 इनवॉइसेस. So these types of practical issues can also crop up, and we should be very careful while we deal with it. Also, I would say go through the list of your clients and see whether all are generating e-invoice, etc. I have faced situations wherein my clients were very casual. I had informed them months ago, reminders, and they thought last din pe kar lenge, and it took 3, 4, 5 days, and their sales billing had stopped for 5 days. So that issues have also been faced. Then last one thing I would say, as I have already told, is we should also check the rejected e-invoices, that what were the errors generated. So yes, friends, these were the practical issues which you would face, you would have already faced, or which I have faced while implementing the e-invoicing, which I wanted to share with you all. So thank you very much for your patient listening. And now I would like to open the floor for your queries, your question answers, etc.
Yeah. Hi, Jugal. I guess there's a few queries in the Q&A. So if we can go one by one.
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah. So first is the e-invoicing site under maintenance? Then what should be done? There have been situations in the past wherein e-invoicing site have gone for maintenance, let's say for 2 hours or etc. But they intimate in advance that they are going to go under maintenance. We won't be able to generate bills on live basis that time. Two options is avoid generating bills at that time, or you can generate, as I told, you can get the IRN code at that time, but report it after 2 hours. So that is one thing which can be done. So next question is, if nil/FOC invoicing cannot be done, then how can we send free samples? Should we raise invoice and credit note as well? I guess there is some confusion. When I told that e-invoicing cannot be generated for nil rated goods, it is, let's say, milk, etc., for which invoicing is not there. For free of cost invoices, what I would suggest is, the act requires is you reverse the input, or what one can do is, instead of reversing the input, sometimes it becomes a practical difficulty. So a practical way out is, you generate an invoice, you levy GST, and after that you transfer the entire amount to discount. So that is one of the way through which you can account it, and you can, in such cases you can also generate e-invoice. If EA bill is generated and then later on cancelled, then is there an option to cancel IRN or QR code or e-invoice itself? If it is after 1 day, it would be auto-populated on GSTR1, and then you will have to delete from the at the time of filing of GSTR1. Next is, what is the definition of turnover? So the definition of turnover is aggregate turnover as per GST. If sales is 20.5 crores and after having discount of credit notes of 1 lakh, should it be considered as 19.5 lakh or 20.5 lakhs? If you have reversed GST on this credit note of 1 lakh, then your turnover would be 19.5 lakh. If this 1 lakh is a financial credit note without reversal of GST, then the turnover would be 20.5 lakhs. Another query is, if turnover is 19.5 lakhs and I am having an indirect income of financial credit note of 1 lakh, then it is not an income. When you have a financial credit note is always going to be reduction in sales price, so it is going to be a expense. So such situation would not arise. Next is, for one of my clients, party name and other details were wrongly picked by software while generating e-invoice, and now 24 hours already lapsed. Sale to mention party is not done till date in New Year. What can be done? Not able to cancel e-invoice. You can't cancel the invoice. While filing GSTR1, you can delete the bill, and you will have to maintain this RICO you will have to maintain the RICO that this was the issue because of which e-invoice is generated, but I have not reported that bill in GSTR1. Next is, can taxpayers below 20 crores opt voluntary for e-invoicing? And the answer is no. Right now, the portal is not allowing voluntary compliances. Only what is done is they enable us. When you go online and you see the status is e-invoicing enabled, and then you have to register. So only for persons to whom e-invoicing is turnover is more than 20 crores, only to them it is enabled. So yeah, now there are few questions in chat box also. At the time of raising e-invoicing on GST portal, there is no option of SSC code. Can we use HSN column? Yes, if that is the situation, you can use. Okay, I guess the questions are repeated in both the place. Please refer to the error in e-invoice details auto-population from GSTR1. Auto-population failed. Document already present with same document number in same period. Yeah, so what happens is, let's say in earlier month you had not generated an e-invoice, or you manually uploaded the data in GSTR1, and now you have again importing e-invoice data. So this error can come. As checked, there is no same number in FY, and IRN is generated but not auto-populated. See, these technical issues, if it is there, I would suggest that you manually add the bill in GSTR1 to ensure that your GSTR1 is correct. Also, one of the issues which I feel is, there are few optional details. At the time of generating of e-invoice, they may not be there with me. For example, it's an export transaction. I may not be having the bill of lading or shipping bill details, but it is mandatory for export for refund that these details should be mentioned in GSTR1. So even if it is auto-populated, I would have to delete it and manually add a bill. That is this is nowhere mentioned, but that is a practical way out which I would suggest, because what is important is getting refund. Tomorrow, department may raise an issue that these e-invoices are generated, or the sources why you have manually added the bills, and then we'll have to again show them the reconciliation. How can we compare sales as per e-invoicing and sales as per GSTR1? See, the simple logic I would say is if e-invoicing is applicable to you, everything would be auto-populated in GSTR1. When you prepare your GSTR1, just cross-check whether the amounts as per you and the amount auto-populated is same. If yes, you can go ahead. If no, identify bill-wise reasons for differences. You can download in Excel auto-populated data of GSTR1, then find bill-wise differences and work on those differences. Next is contractor is raised bill on local authority in the month of April 2022. Assume e-invoice is generated. Payment received in May 22. But after a deduction, say penalty was imposed on work. See, here in this case, when penalty is issued, then it is my expenditure. When penalty is issued, I can't reduce my sales. If they are issuing a penalty, they have to raise a tax invoice on me, and I would treat it as my expenditure and not as reduction in sales. So yes, sir, I feel I have covered all the questions. Are there any questions? I guess in question answers tab there is. Okay, there are 2 more questions. If FMCG distributor follows the practice of generate e-invoice at the end of the day, as there are multiple alterations to the invoice at the time of delivery, is not valid as per law. Any practical view or solution for this situation? Yeah, so here, as I told, they will have to change the industry practice. You can't, what I understand is what is happening here is physical movement of goods is happening and invoice is generated at the end of the day. That is not allowed. Invoices is to be generated before the movement of goods. So before movement of goods, you have to generate invoice and e-way bill. And if there is any changes, you will have to treat it as a credit note or an additional invoice only. So there is a need to change the business practice, I would say. Next is it applicable on advance received from customer? No, I am not generating any invoice when I generate when advance is received. So at that time, e-invoicing won't be applicable. If I am having a turnover of 19.5 lakhs and an incentive income, so let's assume it is 19.5 crores and having an incentive income of 1 crore, then my total turnover will be 20.5 crores, then e-invoicing would be applicable to me. Can we generate e-invoicing 10 days before? No. Future date e-invoicing is not allowed. If I am generating e-invoicing today, I can generate of 4th April only. I can't generate e-invoicing of 5th April today. So that is not allowed. Yes. So I guess with this, we have covered all the questions. And I would like to hand over the mic to Ajinkya Sana.
Yeah, thank you, Jugal. In e-invoicing is already it is an existing concept, but as we all know, the turnover limit has been reduced to 20 CR and above. So there were many issues or many concerns in many professionals, and I guess many of them are solved now. And we have tried to address each and every query. However, if you have any, I guess then you can email him, and his email ID is already available. Also, we will be sharing his PPT as many people have asked for the same. So I once again thank you, Jugal, for taking out your time and giving a thoughtful insight on the e-invoicing under GST.
Thank you, sir, for the opportunity.
And, we will stop for the day.
Yeah.
We'll conclude the webinar. Thank you.
Yes.